Hey everybody, how you doing? This is about to be a really fun video. If you're like me, you love catching deers and you want to be proficient, catch a bunch, and hey, wouldn't it be nice if catching deers was easy? Anyways, this video is the top 10 deer hunting mistakes. Let's just talk about it real quick. Number 1 deer hunting mistake: hunting where there are no deer. Little quick story. I think it's been 3 years now. I made it a goal of mine to take more deer off of public land. So there's 2 wildlife management areas within a 1-hour drive of my house. I hunted both of those for 25 days 3 seasons ago. I saw 1 deer for a split second. 25 days of my life, which I will absolutely say were wasted. Didn't get any deer, didn't learn nothing. Those 2 wildlife management areas are a complete waste of my time. I will never hunt there again. Tip number 1 is hunt where the deer are. That may seem obvious, but I tell people that all the time. You're not gonna get any deer where there are no deer. Now, some of you guys might be lucky. You might be blessed. I have people that message me all the time. Yeah, I just went out back and I shot this monster, off the porch, and my family's got 500 acres full of deer. Hey, y'all are the lucky ones. I do not have that. Sometimes friends of mine will let me come take a doe off their family farm or whatever, and I greatly appreciate that. But all that being said, if you have private land that got a bunch of deer on it, consider yourself lucky or blessed, or however you want to say it. But for everyone else out there, you gotta hunt where the deer are. That seems pretty self-explanatory and obvious, but it's not as obvious as you might think. I say that to people all the time. People say, can you help me with hunting? And I'm saying, well, what are your spots like, and are there any deer there? And they sit back and think, you know what? That's a great point. So tip number 1, or number 1 mistake, you gotta hunt deer where there are actually deer. Number 2, you're not getting any deer is because you just plain can't shoot. Whether it's a bow, crossbow, muzzleloader, rifle. Believe it or not, I was at the range not too long ago, and there was a guy sighting in a 30-06 next to me. I kid you not, he flung a whole box down range and 20 rounds of 30-06. Just pretty much boom, reload, boom, reload. And his group at 100 yards, I kid you not, was about like this. 6, 7, 8-inch group at 100 yards, and he was tickled to death. Now, this is my opinion. If you can't get a 2-inch group at 100 yards, you should not be hunting with that setup. Plain and simple. As that 3-inch group out at 150 yards, your 3-inch group at 100 might be 4 or 5 inches. And then beyond that, you're either wounding or completely missing a deer. Me personally, I'm not going to hunt with something that I can't precisely predict exactly where I'm going to place that projectile. But if you're a bow hunter, you're a crossbow hunter. Crossbow hunting is almost like the bing bang hunting in some regards. But if you can't hit what you're aiming at, you need more practice. Practice, practice, practice. I've never had anything group 6 inches or more. So that instance, you can't blame it on the scope, or you could blame it on the scope. We'll get to that in a little bit later. But number 2, you haven't practiced enough. You can't just go out to the store, take it to the woods, and say, hey, I'm good. You got to practice, prove it to yourself, prove it in respect of the deer that you are proficient with your rig. Bow hunters, you already know, you practice a bunch. Practice a bunch. When you can perfectly hit what you're aiming at every time, then you're ready to hit the deer woods. So, number 2, you're just a garbage shot and you need to practice more. Number 3, you stink. Literally, in a smelly kind of a way. So, just an example. 2 years ago, I started hunting this one piece of property, and I was getting deer into where I couldn't see them, but they'd scream at me. This is whitetail. Wah, wah. If you guys that have had whitetail blow at you and smoke run away know what I'm talking about. But shout out to a friend of mine, Keith. He said, well, you ought to try this spray stuff. Me personally, I never believed in the whole smelly stuff or even the wind. I just said that's marketing scams, people trying to sell you something. Well, it's this orange bottle of stuff. They're not a sponsor or whatever, but I bought some of it, sprayed it all over my clothes, and guess what? I started taking deer off that property. They didn't even know I was there. But smell is a thing. I won't say it's an absolute crazy must, but deer smelling you is a thing. And if you can make yourself smell less or smell like something that doesn't bother the deer, it goes into your advantage. So the deer can smell you. Hey, I use that bottle of orange spray stuff. I can't remember what it is. But 3, you stink and the deer is smelling you. So fix that problem. Number 4, you aren't good at hiding. You're not catching deer because you're scaring deer, or they're seeing you from far off because 1, you are creating an obvious silhouette if you have just an all white shirt or all black shirt and you're just sitting wide out in the open. Whether the deer can see what colors or not, there's a bunch of arguments on that. If you're creating an obvious, solid symbol that is unnatural in the woods, the deer will see you way before you see them. I wear True Timber camo. This is my favorite pattern, the Strata camo. If you get a WHOTEEWHO hat from the WHOTEEWHO website, it is in True Timber Strata pattern. True Timber's got a bunch of different patterns. You can even buy some of it at Walmart. This is the stuff you can get at Walmart. True Timber's Takari XRC pattern. I like this one too. I took a couple deer this year and last year wearing this stuff. But all that being said, number 4, you're not good at hiding. Camo's not expensive these days, especially True Timber. It's affordable, good camo. But you're not good at hiding. Now that could mean what you're wearing. That could mean just your placement. You know, if I'm on the ground, I'm trying to find a big tree that's wider than my shoulders, which sometimes it's hard to find that, but do your best. Whether it's a rock, deer are normally slowly, very scared animals, especially whitetail. They're fidgety, they're jumpy, they're afraid all the time. If they see a head sticking up randomly, that's danger. I'm gonna get out of there. But if you got your back on the ground versus a big tree, then they're just seeing the shape of a tree. But if you're moving around, you know, doing all this stuff, hey, do a better job of hiding and the deer won't see you. That's another one that might be kind of obvious, but hey, that's something to point out. You want to see the deer before they see you. Make everything happen to where you're hiding better. Number 5, hunting tip or hunting mistake that you're making. Patience. So, a lot of people only hunt, you know, the first 30 minutes, hour of daylight, then they'll take a nap, then they'll come back out the last hour. Yeah, I've taken deer every hour of the day, whether it's 6:30 in the morning, 5 o'clock at night, noon. You got to be patient. Last year, I shot 1 8-pointer in this state. I only filled one of my 2 tags, and I got it doing an all-day sit. It was 9 degrees when I got out in the woods. Kid you not. Climbed up in a tree. 30 minutes after I got there, pulled out my Mountain Dew, and it was ice solid. Normally don't get that cold here, but I said I'm going to sit all day. The day before, I had seen a monster buck come through. Snow on the ground. I told my wife, I'm sitting out there all day till I get a deer. And that's what I did. I sat in the same tree all day from sunup till almost sundown. When we were videoing it and taking pictures, it was getting dark. I got that deer at 4:30 p.m. last year from sitting all day. So you can't just hunt the first hour and the last hour and say you're going to have a ton of success. Hey, those deer are somewhere in the middle of the day too. You might have to sit all day and be patient and be super bored and twiddle your thumbs a while. Stay awake, because if you fall asleep, then you know that's when the deer are going to come. But patience is a dwindling thing, especially these days. People want now. Well, if you want to catch a deer, if you want to catch a big deer, you got to have patience. Work on your patience. Number 6, deer hunting mistake. Equipment failure. So, some of the things, especially if you're rifle hunting, if you're bow hunting, it's probably going to be much more obvious. Whether your sight's off, your hold is wrong. Bow hunting, you got to hold it back at the same time every single time. you're going to see your mistakes quick if you're bow hunting. On your rifle, it might not be as obvious. So I have this sitting at my desk. What is this? This is the Wheeler Fat Wrench. I check the torque on my hunting rigs all the time. So just as an example, this is my Ruger 7744. It's a 44 mag. I took a 8-point buck with it 2 or 3 weeks ago. That video's up. So, are your rings torqued? Are your bases torqued? This particular one has the screw type. Are your action screws torqued? You could go out at the range, and if you didn't torque these, you know, you could send a whole box getting it sighted in, but you know what? That last 1 or 2 flings, something might have been working itself loose. Then when you get out there, squeeze the trigger on the deer, your point of impact is an inch off at 100. So you might wound that deer where you held and squeezed it, and even though you practiced and you were hitting what you're aiming at, hey, some of your equipment failed. So if you're hunting, especially if you're going out of state or something, hey, go to the garage or take one of these with you. You don't even have to have a torque wrench. These aren't super expensive. Do I have one right here? I did. Yeah, I've also got a travel kit right here. This is the Wheeler Fat Sticks. This is in my range bag, and if I go hunting, I take this in my suitcase. It has torque wrenches with built-in settings, which is pretty cool. So like this one, you put this on there, 15 inch-pounds, and this thing comes with a couple bits and all that stuff to cover you. So make sure your equipment is torqued good. Like I said, especially if you're traveling, hey, man, you don't want that to be the problem of you missing the deer of a lifetime. Also, one last thing when it comes to equipment, you have got to practice how you are hunting. So if you watch the show, I do a lot of sighting in and group testing off a lead sled or a squeeze bag and a good solid front rest. So if you're getting those 1-inch groups or better out at the range, you're confident, but then you're out there hunting and you're trying to take a deer at 300 yards from the shoulder, I promise you, you're not getting those tight half-inch, 1-inch groups at 300 yards from the shoulder. Your blood's pumping. You're doing this. You ever play a game, a hunting game on the PlayStation or Nintendo or something? The longer you hold the rifle, the more it makes you shake. That's because that's true in real life. So if you're hunting, you got to have a secure rest. Whether you keep a light bag in your pack with you, whether you shoot off of a rock or have your backpack or whatever, get the most secure rest that you can get to duplicate like you're at the range, like you're off a bench rest. So when you squeeze that trigger, nothing hanky's happening or jumping around. You're confident at the range. You got to be confident out in the woods, but have it the most secure rest possible. When I hunt with my kids, I bring a bog tripod. I don't have it in here, I'd show you, but it's those clamps. I'll pop up a picture or something. I have my kids hunt with a bog tripod. Bog death grip's what it's called. And that helps them have a secure rest. So when they're hunting with me, boom, I don't have to worry about them being shaky because it's in that vice rest. So check your equipment, have a good rest. You'll be more successful. Number 7, biggest mistake for deer hunting. You haven't matched your ammo to your rifle. So if you've watched my show, that's a big part of my show and teaching that to people how it works. So what do I have sitting here? I was doing 243 recently. I recently got the new Savage Axis Pro out. And I tested a lot more than this. I think I tested 6 or 7 types. I bought a 243. So what's the first step? First step, I'll pick one and I'll get it sighted in. So my impact is on. I can hit my target. I don't have to worry about going crazy or anything. So I'll walk it in with one. And then I go get at least 3, normally 4, 5, 6 for the sake of the show. And I'll test out all types of ammunition. This is a 100 grainer. That's a 100 grainer. These are all 100 grainers. But for 243, I'll get an 80 grainer. I'll get a 90, a 95, 100. And I will just for sure have the confidence what type of ammo in my rifle shoots the best groups. Why have a rifle that shoots 2-inch groups? when you can take the time to figure out the ammo that it likes. When I tell that to people, a lot of people don't realize that, especially if you're getting new into hunting. I figured if you just pick up anything that says 243 on it, we'll be good to go. No, that's not how it works. That's why so many people hand load. It used to be, I'm a hand loader because it saves me money. Nowadays, hand loading is more of a precision thing. We want to get those groups super tiny, and we'll build a grid and do different speeds and different weights of projectiles to find exactly what that rig likes. But number 7, if you're rifle hunting, have you matched that ammo to your rifle and done the time testing to see what it likes? You might think, oh, it gets an 1.5 inch group at 100 yards. Well, then you go try to take a mule deer at 400 yards. You will wish that you had found better ammo that groups tighter. When you're taking a crack at 400 yards, your 1.5 inch at 100 is a group this big, and then you're wounding and missing deer. So take the time. You know, you might have to spend $100, maybe more, finding the ammo, but down the road, you'll be glad that you did it and took the time to find the ammo that it likes. Number 8, poor placement of the bow light on your deer or arrow or whatever. No matter what you're hunting, you got to understand the anatomy of the animals. In this past August, I went to Africa. Details studied from a book. My buddy John, shout out to John McAdams, he referred me to a book for the African animals that showed me exactly where the heart is. Here's where the lung is. Here's a report and account of an expert hunting in Africa to precisely tell you the details about these animals in Africa. Same thing with white-tailed deer, mule deer, elk, whatever you're hunting. Where is that heart? Where is the lungs? Where does the spine come down through the back? So I never suggest people do spine shots, neck shots. I do it, or high shoulder shots, because those are riskier. A central nervous hit, so the spine, the neck, drops them immediately. There's no tracking, but that's a more risky shot. The easiest, biggest target is in the lungs. If you hit them a good placement in the lungs, they're going to go down. Heart is also a good shot, but the heart is harder to hit than the lungs. Me personally, I prefer hearts. The deer I took literally with this, no, not with that one, with my 300 blackout, which is over there. I hit one in the heart, and then I hit one in the high shoulder. First one in the heart, ran about 30 yards. The second one didn't run anywhere because I hit it in the spine. But when you're hunting in the woods in 20, 30 yards, those are chip shots, and you can absolutely be sure of your shot. But hey, all that to be said, and ramble on out there for a minute, make sure of your placement as well as knowing the anatomy of that animal. You should be able to tell me where you're aiming and where it's going to hit every single time, because you practice, check your equipment, you've hidden and done all those things. Placement of that projectile, whether it's an arrow or a muzzle loader, shotgun slug, whatever. Placement is key. You don't want to be wounding anything. You don't even want to be tracking things if you can get away from it. So, placement. Number 9, relying on cameras too much. So, I love trail cameras. I love the cell phone trail cameras. I got a couple apps on my phone. I use a couple different types. I've been sitting in the tree deer hunting where I can see one of my trail cameras, and I've had deer stand right in front of it for a good 30 seconds to a minute, and I never got a picture from my cell phone trail camera. So I know several people, they don't even deer hunt. They have the cameras out there. This is Tennessee. They've got the cameras out there on their family farm. Oh, there's a big deer out there. They'll enter the farm from the other side of the property, sneak in, 200 yards, and then they'll get a monster buck, and they don't even have to hunt. Is that cool? You're getting big deer. Yeah, but that's not really hunting anymore. But whatever floats your boat. I'm not going to knock you however you want to hunt your deer. But relying on the technology is not the best thing. It's a great tool to help you see the deer, what time the deer coming in. But like I said, I've watched deer walk right past cameras. And if I was hunting only with my cameras, there's no deer out there today. I wouldn't have even gone hunting. But you can't trust the cameras. They're not an absolute. They're a great tool in the toolbox if it's legal and you're allowed to use them. Like I said, I love cameras. I love checking the trail cameras. I run trail cameras all year long. I have for 3 or 4 years now. But don't rely 100% on the cameras because you're going to be missing opportunities at deer. Number 10, not understanding deer habits. I'm not going to go too deep or too long in this one, but you might have scouted that public land, seen a lot of tracks, and then you don't look at the terrain. You don't look at the food sources. You don't look at the water sources. You don't look for the bedding areas. Nowadays, you can see maps for free on your computer, on your phone. Where are those deer eating? Where are those deer getting their water? Deer got to have water to drink. They do get water from their food, but deer got to have water. They got to have a place to sleep where they feel safe, and they got to have food. So those three main things. Look at your terrain and figure out the best plan of where those deer are coming through. You might see one little trail and think, I'm going to sit on this trail, which isn't entirely a bad idea. But you know what? Those deer might be using that particular trail at nighttime. And you're not going to see any of them because you're sitting there in the daytime, because we can't take the deer at the nighttime. So, as a part of your scouting, like I said, number one, you can't take deer that aren't there or that don't exist on that property. Look at the terrain and the map, find the food, the bedding, and the water. Pick you out 2 or 3 probable good spots. Put some cameras out if you're allowed to, or you can, and see what happens. Find out your best bet or 2 or 3 of where you think those deer are going to be moving through that spot in the daylight. Number 10 is understanding the habits and the pattern of the deer on the property where you got permission to hunt. So, number 10, biggest mistake, not understanding deer habits. All right, this is a bonus just for the end of the video. Number 11, biggest deer hunting mistake, calling too much. You go down to Walmart or Sportsman's Warehouse or Shields, or I wish we had Shields here. When I do my traveling, I always like stopping at Shields. That's an awesome store. Bass Pro, Cabela's, they all got the stuff. Calling too much. So the guys on TV and whatnot, what you've seen before, they're doing these ads for these calls, you know, the little cans, you flip them over, the little plastic antlers, the little bag full of sticks you shake, all that. Yeah, probably in the right, perfect circumstance can help you catch a deer. But I have hunted a lot, many days, quite a few different states. And I've never once just blindly called and that brought deer to me. Now, it does work. It can work. I have friends that love their calls. I do very little calling. And normally when I do call, it's because I already see a deer and I'm trying to change his trajectory to come my direction. It's not blindly calling deer. Now, hey, I'm not going to knock you for blindly calling deer, but every 20, 30 seconds you're smashing those antlers and doing doe calls, there's a good chance you might be scaring the deer as opposed to bringing them to you. So your area, your deer might act different than mine. You know, I see people in Texas, I read articles and stuff, they're talking about rattling all the time. I've never blind rattled a deer in, but I know a lot of people do it. I'm just saying, be careful with your calls and make sure you're not scaring deer with your calls, even though you're trying to bring them in. So just be careful with it. I've taken a lot of deer with a whole lot of methods: bow, crossbow, muzzleloader, centerfire. Last time I did a count, it was almost 30 different methods talking about different centerfires of taking deer. Key is, go where the deer are, hide, don't stink, have some camo helping you hide, don't move around a bunch, and make sure your equipment's up to snuff, and make sure you can place that arrow or projectile exactly where you want it. But hey, make sure you're subscribed. If you haven't already, go check out WHOTEEWHO.com. Appreciate y'all watching. we'll see you guys in the next one. Let me know. I love it. You guys send me pictures all the time of the deer you got, the elk you got. Send me all those pictures. Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff is down below. Tag me in your deer pictures so I can see them. Appreciate y'all. We'll see you on the next one. Hooty-hoo!